So today's episode is going to be a little bit different. We're going to be talking about cybersecurity and why it's so important for marketers. Now, you may be kind of scratching your head saying, okay, wait, cybersecurity, what's the big deal? I'm trying to generate leads and help my company drive revenue. Well, you know, I'm sure if you heard of a little thing called the Equifax breach and all the other breaches going on constantly, we're hearing it's really, really, really important. And so for today's episode, we've got Mr. James Azar from CyberHub Summit, or CyberHub Summit. They've got an event coming up where they're talking about the importance of this, and he's going to be sharing with us some really interesting tips and some stories that really do impact us marketers and why it's important to make sure that we are taking a really vigilant stance. So stay tuned and watch this great episode. We're here in the Optimum Production Studio. I'm Danny Gonzalez, and this is IndustrialSage. All right, well, we're really excited to kick off this episode. We have James Azar here from CyberHub Summit, who's going to talk to us about all the great things in cybersecurity. And there's some really interesting things we talked about, before the episode that there were some surprising things actually that I'm excited to be able to share with the audience. But before we really get into all this, James, if you just introduce yourself to the audience, tell us a little about yourself and CyberHub.
Sure. So I'm James Azar. I'm one of the founders of CyberHub USA. We are a cyber awareness company. So we have CyberHub Summit coming up the first week in November 8th and 9th here in Atlanta. It's our first summit in the Southeast, expected to be the largest cybersecurity summit in the history of the Southeast. We're expecting around 500 people.
That's awesome.
Really, a really cool summit. We're gonna have Robert Herjavec there from the Shark Tank, guys who, we can't say what they did before,
sure,
but I've heard the stories and they're great. And we're really trying to foster a cybersecurity awareness here in the Southeast. We feel, with Governor Deal doing a lot of cyber programs here in Augusta and in Fort Gordon, and he's really seen the future. He's done a really good job of at least recognizing where things are going and positioning Georgia to be a leader there. And we feel like Atlanta's home now, so we're excited about it.
Well, we're excited to learn more about it and jump in this now. Admittedly, with a lot of our audience may be thinking to themselves, okay, this is a podcast and this is a show on, and manufacturing and industrial marketing and sales, and now we're talking about cybersecurity. Where's the disconnect here? They might feel like, okay, why do we need to be worried about this? What's the big deal? And why should we? Is this totally off base here?
It's not. It's actually a very wise thing to do and address with the audience you have here, because really simple, hackers go after businesses they can easily target. So if you're an industrial manufacturer, you're in manufacturing, you're in any part of what we call old school business, right? The non kind of tech where the equipment is tech, but the business itself is not as much. You tend to find yourself going like, how does this relate to me? Well, yeah. It does, because if your bank accounts are hacked and someone steals your money, you're pretty much out of business.
It's kind of a problem.
Yeah, unless you've got the right insurance plan, and most businesses today don't even understand cyber insurance to even understand that something like this is offered.
Right.
But we're not going to do an insurance pitch. We'll talk about more why it relates to them. Hackers go where it's an easy target for them. And most businesses in industry are easy targets. One email, I can shut down your machines. I shut down your machines. Now I'm holding you at ransom until you pay me in Bitcoins.
Yeah.
And guess what? Call any police department you want. They're going to come in and say, listen,
what can we do?
What can we do? Really, it's an FBI Secret Service thing.
Yeah.
And then it just depends. What are they asking you for? One Bitcoin? That's $5,000.
Right. Officially as of yesterday, right?
Officially as of yesterday.
Yes.
So, and if they ask you even for one Bitcoin or $1,000, it's not even really something where the FBI or Secret Service, who are responsible for cyber investigations, really going to investigate. They're really focused on the big dollar investigations, like the Equifax breach or the JP Morgan Chase hack that happened not long ago, or the SEC hack that just happened. And I mean, every day you hear a new story. Yahoo, 3 billion accounts hacked. So you hear that and you go, well, that's what they're going after. Well, that's information.
Right.
And that's an attack on our privacy. But there's attacks every day that go unreported. A lot of the attacks, a lot of the ransomware cyber attacks go unreported.
Yeah, yeah.
You get hacked, you pay it, and the reason it goes unreported is because no one wants that reputational hit.
Yeah, exactly. That makes sense.
And that gets us to the marketing piece of it, where it's important because if you do get hacked and your information is compromised,
yes,
your client information is compromised, your client's IP's information is compromised, or your own IP is compromised, you're almost out of business.
Yeah, what I think what's interesting is, and where this a lot of relevancy comes in, is that there's been lots of shifts for in the marketing landscape, going from that traditional sense of marketing over to digital, and there's a lot of great things. That's what we talk a lot about on this podcast. And if you look at the evolution of all the different technologies that are coming out of the last several years, we talked about the MarTech stack,
right.
And how right now there's over 5,000 different types of marketing software. There's a ton, and it's awesome. There's all these things you can do, and you connect all this. And so the average company that's doing some sort of digital marketing, they've got, 20 or 30 different types of marketing software that's out there, and it's doing all this great things. But when it comes to cybersecurity, that is a little bit of a vulnerability, a little bit of a potential problem, I would imagine, right?
Well, it's really easy. I mean, think of a hacker just gaining a hold of your company. Yeah. And now they go into all of your marketing software and they start to shoot emails to your clients that come from you but are really phishing emails. So now your clients are getting hacked because of your vulnerability.
Yeah.
And there's a test case to this.
Okay.
So there's a cyber company by the name of FireEye. And FireEye is a very large publicly traded company. It was recently bought out by Mandiant, which is also very big information security company. And FireEye was hacked by hackers through a third-party vendor on social media. So they had a third-party person who managed their Facebook account.
Yeah.
His Facebook account was hacked. As a result of that, they got all that information, and this person had access to sensitive parts of the company.
There you go.
And when that happened, all of their information was online. And the hackers gained access to the cyber company, who now is having a bit of a challenge.
I would imagine. Yeah.
To get things going.
Right.
And they're a great company and they have a great service. And I mean, FireEye really is a leader in cyber, but it shows you that humans are the weakest link in the chain. And even at the most aware places, just that one moment of, I want to say, just of not even laziness, of complacency, you can lose everything you've worked so hard for.
Well, and I think that's a really eye-opening story that you're talking about there. That really totally sets the stage, for me and definitely our audience, looking at this and say, hey, look, knowing that we have all this different stuff that's out there, knowing that these guys got hacked, you're coming through, on their social media,
right?
And then also knowing that there's a big drive for big data, so we have all our customer lists and information. You're mentioning different IPs and technology and stuff there. So it's kind of like once you're in, I mean, they can kind of get wherever else. So it's not just about protecting our little marketing, our marketing stack or whatever. It's really just getting into the network, and that's a portal, right? They can get in. And
I mean, once they're in, they're in. Now there's ways to stop them. It's not doomsday.
Yeah.
Right?
This is good. That's good, because you're hearing about it a lot.
It's in the news every day.
Yeah.
It's another breach. It's another hack. It's another revelation of a previous hack, because they keep investigating and they realize that more. I mean, Yahoo just said we thought it was 1 billion accounts, 3 billion accounts were compromised.
Man, yeah.
6 billion people live on planet Earth. 3 billion Yahoo accounts were compromised. That's if every person in the population, every second person in the population had a Yahoo account, that lets you know that 50% of the world was affected by the Yahoo breach.
Yeah.
And just go by that.
I have 5 Yahoo accounts, so I will throw it out.
So you're part of the 3 billion. So you take that, you're starting to mess with statistics here.
Oh man, I just use that to do form fills of information. I know nobody ever does that, right?
So all 3 billion accounts are just marketers.
At least half. But anyway, so.
But you have all these, but it's not a doomsday scenario. If you feel like you got hacked, you should right away report it.
That's good. Okay. Yeah.
Go to your CIO, whoever your IT person is, and say, hey, I clicked on a link. It was a bad link. Don't be afraid to do it. You're not going to lose your job in most companies for saying I clicked on the wrong link right away.
Yeah.
You're going to lose it for clicking on it, not letting
saying
anyone
anything.
know.
Yeah.
Then the hackers are in, because at that moment, if I'm an IT guy, I come in, you say, hey, I just clicked on the wrong link. I go, all right, cool. We shut down the machine, we disconnect it, we start to play with the logs, we put it on a different network so that even if they access something later on, they're not accessing the right information, they're accessing just fake information that we're putting there to see what they're really going after.
Yeah.
There's so many things that you can do to prevent it just by being aware and not being afraid. And the sad part of this is when companies do get hacked, most of the time the person who's responsible for it doesn't want to report it because they're afraid that they're going to lose their job or get in trouble for it. And if you speak to as many CISOs, Chief Information Security Officers, or Chief Information Officers or IT guys, they'll tell you, I'll never fire someone for reporting it. I'll fire him because I'll find out a week later that I got hacked and that this much information and they didn't tell us. And so it's always good to do it right away and to just be aware of it. I mean, it's not if, it's when. And let's switch that conversation. It's not if, it's when. And how do you handle it when you get hacked? And if we move to a marketing standpoint, one of the things we tell our clients at CyberHub is really simple. Have a contingency plan when it happens.
What might that look like? Like what?
Send out a communication to all your clients, letting them know, hey, we think there was a security breach. We ask you to please change some of the information that you've given us for your own security. Right? Work with your IT guys to figure out where exactly the breach went and who it affected. And then start communicating that in a personal manner and then in a wider net manner if need be. One of the, you look at a test case of what Equifax and what that equated to for us here in America. It's a very severe breach, but the bigger piece to that was the fact that they didn't report it for 2 months.
Yeah, that was a little interesting, to say the least.
And then they had an insider trading scheme between
that was
people
even more
doing
interesting.
it. That was even more interesting. And now we find out that then the website they set up for you to check out if you were hacked and compromised in their hack was a phishing website altogether. So they made a lot of mistakes along the way. Unfortunately. And part of that has to do with the fact that there is no blueprint book of how do you handle being hacked. There isn't. There isn't one out there. And most organizations are afraid of that. And now the reality is you're going to get hacked at one point or another. You're going to get compromised. It's just a matter of how much information is compromised. And and how do you handle it? I mean, think if Equifax found out they got hacked on July 26th, July 27th, they came out and told everyone, we believe we had a breach. We're going to report more on it later, but we ask everyone to please be aware and monitor their credit. They would have had a completely different fallout than what happened in September. I don't think they still would have had a congressional hearing. I just don't think it would have been as bad as this recent one was for Mr. Smith.
I mean, there's obviously quite a few issues, more than one. With them on that. I'm no cybersecurity expert on that at all, but
on a marketing standpoint, you can agree with me that they
absolutely. Well, there's
a lot of ways to
question of
handle
credibility.
it.
There's a question of transparency. Especially with who they are and what they do. And anyways, but what are some key maybe takeaways or some key things that you've got a large market. You have a lot of different applications, a lot of SaaS applications that you're using. What are some things that companies can be doing like right now to help to try to mitigate some of that, or really just take a proactive approach to kind of reduce that impact?
Most companies use the same password.
Okay. Which is a good strategy, right?
Horrible strategy.
Okay, so I just wanted to clear.
Let's just clear that up. And they use a combination of password, which a lot of times is very easily predictable, right?
So 1, 2, 3, 4.
Well, it can be IndustrialSage 1, 2, 3, 4 as your password, and you go, oh, cool.
Amazing. That's the same combination as my luggage. Oh,
right.
Sorry, Spaceballs reference.
And sometimes people will make the eyes ones to get sophisticated, but I mean, at the end of the day, the language is already set.
He guessed my password.
Have a different password for every program.
Okay.
And a lot of people tell me, hey, James, I use the password app on my phone for all my passwords. I go, who's the back end of your app? And they go, well, I don't know. I go,
I don't know.
ever wonder?
Yeah.
If you're going to store your passwords, store them somewhere where only you know it. Put them in a file where only you know where they're at. And as an organization, have different passwords for every single tool you use. It's a pain in your tail.
Yeah.
But I'd rather, cybersecurity is not supposed to be easy.
Right. Yeah. There's that question of convenience. You've got that's
part of security.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
I mean, no one wants to take their shoes off at the airport, right?
Yeah.
But if you want to get on an airplane, you got to pass through TSA and you're taking your shoes off.
That's true. But is there a pre-check when it comes to cybersecurity? Is there?
Not yet. Unfortunately, not yet. And that's the challenge, is there isn't yet enough regulation in place. And you don't really want the government coming to organizations and telling them you have to use these cybersecurity, because that could impact the development of a business.
Sure, yeah.
Because a lot of cybersecurity systems out there are very pricey. And a lot of businesses don't even know how to approach it. They go, well, I got an antivirus and I have a firewall. Well, great. I'm happy you have both, but that's not enough. You've got to have a broader strategy to it. You've got to have a strategy that essentially says, hey, it's not just this and that. And there's companies out there that offer a complete solution for small, medium-sized businesses that don't want to spend the millions of dollars a year on security, but that need to spend a few $1,000s to have the basic securities. There are companies out there. Shameless plug. They can meet them at our summit on November 8th and 9th.
Okay, I just want to make
Omni Hotel, Atlanta, Georgia. All right. They'll all be there. But there's options out there for them, and there's stuff that's going on that's within budgets of companies that can really help them.
Yeah.
And the challenge we have in cybersecurity today is when you talk of companies that are more in the industry side of the business, not the tech side.
Sure.
The people going after them aren't really talking the right language. And they're not really giving the right business case. And these companies are the bread and butter of our economy. They provide a lot of jobs, good paying jobs in great environments, and they're career jobs. And so it's vital that the leaders of those companies start to have that conversation about cybersecurity and come together as an industry to find the right solutions. And that conversation needs to be had in a conversation like you and I are having right now.
Sure.
It's a non-techie conversation, but you're starting to understand the implications of it.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of ways that these businesses can do to protect themselves. We talked about the passwords, but let's get into a little bit more kind of detail. Let's give them a little bit more tips. It's not only your passwords. It's about your Wi-Fi.
Okay.
It's about cellular devices. Cellular devices now get hacked more than computers.
Interesting. Yeah. So I'm on my LTE network, not on the Wi-Fi, and that's still.
You can still get your phone can still get hacked, and if you got a picture of a highly secured area or a highly secured plane on your phone, and I just hacked your phone and I got into your pictures, I see it, it's compromised.
Right.
So one thing we tell people is in highly sensitive areas, I go to cyber meetings in some places where no phones are allowed in the building. You leave your phones in a building across the street. And you're going in and you're phoneless. You're no technology for a few hours, which by the way is really nice. I gotta tell you, now looking at your iPhone for a little while is really nice.
There's some benefits to that.
But in business, one of the things they should consider doing is really getting rid of that wireless communication from sensitive areas. And if you're an executive in a company, have two phones. Have a number that people can use and have another number that you use for your two-factor authentication, for special communication. And when you have that, then people are able to communicate with you that way.
Right.
And you're able to save yourself from getting hacked, because hacking your phone is very common now.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, before we were talking about this, we were even showing, somebody here was like, oh yeah, you just got this text yesterday from my bank saying that my bank was compromised or there was a fraud or something like that. So I mean, it's just crazy how much we're seeing that. I know personally I've run into that as well. It's just all these different phishing scams just constantly, right?
And these are coming because here's the deal. As law enforcement in this country, we're very understaffed to investigate cybercrimes. And cyber criminals know this.
Yeah.
It's the guys who go looting after a hurricane. They go looting after a hurricane because they know law enforcement is busy rescuing people.
Right, exactly,
They're not
yeah.
going to respond to a robbery call.
Right, yeah.
Right?
Same thing with cyber.
So
though,
cyber criminals understand that local PDs and county PDs are ill-equipped to handle cyber crimes at the
right.
moment.
And they're going to go after the big fish.
And,
Only the big
and,
fish,
and
right?
they're
Yeah.
gonna and the FBI and Secret Service are ones who investigate cybercrimes. And the reason for that is not necessarily manpower, but it's also legislation and law. Law says that if it's an interstate crime, the FBI is the body that investigates that crime. Meaning, if I'm in Georgia and I hacked someone in Alaska, the Alaska PD has no jurisdiction to bring me from Georgia
Right.
to Alaska. Only the FBI can charge me with that crime. But you're talking about cyber criminals that could be Americans or could be overseas.
Foreign, yeah.
And so for that reason, you have only two bodies in the United States that investigate cybercrime, the Secret Service and the FBI. And they have very limited manpower and they go after specific cases. But if you're a small business who got hacked and they took $50,000, you're on the
Yeah.
bottom of that list.
Yeah.
And if you're not insured correctly, another thing businesses should do is look at insurance, cyber insurance.
Wow, yeah.
Start shopping that option to protect your business. So when it does happen, at least you don't lose your business.
Yeah.
You can file a claim with your insurance company, you can try to remedy it. And insurance companies, being that they want to recover the money,
Yeah.
they have their own investigation teams to investigate the crime. And they
Yeah.
can build a case and submit it to the FBI for prosecution. And we're starting to see more of that happening now. So you're starting to see more insurance companies hire cyber investigation teams.
Wow.
And, you know, they go out, these private teams, they investigate the crime, they find the culprits, they bring all the evidence, they submit it to the FBI, and the FBI is then able to execute through the Department of Justice and whatever else body is needed, warrants to bring those people to justice.
That is crazy. I never thought that we'd be on a marketing podcast be talking about cybersecurity and why it was, such a need and to make sure to put some of these things in practice to make sure that we're protecting ourselves and we're protecting the companies that you're working for, because it's such a real threat. And as like you said, it's not a question of if,
When?
it's a question of when.
I mean, when you think of a marketing podcast, just final words. When you think of a marketing, and we're in a marketing podcast, and you think of the impact that this can have on your brand, I mean, when you think of Equifax, does anyone trust Equifax today?
Not right now.
Right? Do you trust Yahoo?
Probably not right now.
Not right
All
now.
my 5 counts are deleted.
The SEC got hacked.
Yeah.
I mean, and the SEC is a government body.
And that's scary. I mean, you're hearing about all of these. I mean, just not just his hacks in smaller companies, but huge, like legitimate.
Deloitte
Yeah.
got hacked.
Yeah.
And we're still finding out things about that hack as well. So you have all this going on, and our best tip for the viewers of this podcast is be vigilant. There's a lot of resources online. We'll put something up on this podcast.
That'd be great. Yeah.
With some tips for them to kind of look at. We'll also give them a nice little discount if they want to, locally here in Atlanta or in the area, and they want to come out. We'll take care of them because they're your viewers and help them out to come and get some education. I know you guys are going to be there, probably video shooting as well. And so we're going to be doing a lot of stuff together, I believe, with IndustrialSage as we grow and helping the businesses here in the area develop more awareness and really building a program to help them understand that security now correlates with your marketing.
Yeah.
Because if your customers are your clients, your customers, your vendors are hacked because of you, they're not going to do business with you anymore. And that's not just the business factor, it's the legal implications of it.
Sure.
If they suffered severe losses, they're going to go after someone and you're the reason why.
Yeah.
And it's like a chain car accident.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who rear ends who, right?
Right.
The person who was the last one to get rear-ended is not at fault.
Right.
Everyone in the
Everybody
middle is
else.
at fault, even though it was this guy at the very end who got hit.
Right. Yep. That's a
And
great analogy.
And so this is going to be the scenario as you get hacked. So as as these businesses, look for more marketing ideas and how to secure customers, being secure helps you get customers because you're able to let your customers know, listen, these are some of the security measures we use to protect you. You'll never get an email from us that says this. And if you do, delete it.
Yeah.
And if you're also letting your customers know that you're doing security tips in your monthly newsletter, you're sending them a security tip. Hey, a really common phishing scheme this month is a text to your phone. Now you're educating your vendors and your customers, and it's a 2-line thing.
Yeah.
It's a 2-line fact. And by having that fact, you're increasing awareness with your vendors as well. And they also start to become more aware of it, and now you're mitigating risk.
Right, yeah.
And in security, it's all about mitigating risk. Like marketing, you want to maximize ROI.
Right.
And so if you mitigate risk, maximize ROI, you'll be very successful long term. But you got to be prepared for it. You got to start taking those steps, finding that budget.
Yeah, and great content too. Great way to be able to stay in
well, it gives them something different.
Yeah, exactly.
It gives your customers something different,
yeah.
right? I mean, you think about it. When your bank sends you a notice that says, "Hey, there's a new scam going on, and it's not us." You go, "Oh, cool, thank you, bank." Right?
Yeah. Is my money still there? Okay, good.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And you want the same from your vendors. I mean, we know it's really appreciated, and it's a challenge, and it's a global threat, and it needs a lot of global players to come on board to really resolve it on a grand scale of thing. But on a local scale, there's little steps that people can do to be very, very successful.
Excellent. Well, this has been really informative. I really appreciate it, James, for coming on and just sharing with all this information on here. So if anybody has any questions, or they want to follow, what's the best way to reach you?
Tweet. I think you guys have my Twitter handle, my personal Twitter. They can find me on LinkedIn. They can email me, call our office.
Yeah.
I do meetings all day long and calls and
certainly come and then the CyberHub Summit, right?
Which is CyberHub Summit.
November. What are the dates?
November 8th and 9th at the CNN Center at the Omni Hotel. Starts in the afternoon on the 8th, goes all day on the 9th. It's going to end with the Robert Herjavec, the star of Shark Tank, keynoting, and he's going to be talking about exactly what we just discussed, which is fast forward and focus. How do you understand, the constant development in technology, and how do you protect your business from everything that's going on? And we've got some really great speakers. We have generals that are going to be there, councils, great business leaders from the Atlanta and the Southeast and the entire country, and people from abroad as well. So it's a good opportunity to really, and it's in layman terms. It's a non-techie conference.
That's good.
I keep
That's
saying
good.
that.
Yeah.
If you're a CEO or a business owner of a medium-sized business and you're like, listen, I go to these and it goes right over my head. That's not the point of this. This is very layman terms. You're going to come out with knowledge, and you're going to know people that you can call on for help get some meetings after to help you out. And that's the point. That's why we're doing it.
That's awesome. Well, it's great. Well, thanks again so much for joining on here.
My pleasure.
And
Thank
coming
you
on
for
here.
having me.
So, again, wow, I never thought that we would be having a marketing topic around cybersecurity and why it's such a need, but I think it's kind of a no-brainer. A lot of people, you're hearing these stories all the time. And so it's really incumbent upon ourselves, especially as we are using a lot of different marketing products, SaaS products, all this stuff is in the cloud, making sure it's protected, especially as, with manufacturing and industrial plants, pushing Industry 4.0 and everything's all super connected. We can do all these amazing things. There's also really big vulnerability. So it's really, we've got to take it upon ourselves to make sure that we are protecting ourselves and protecting the companies that we're working for, because, we've got a million, our marketing stack is huge, right? So I invite you to take a look at the CyberHub Summit that's coming up in November. If you're around the Atlanta area, like James mentioned, we'll put in the notes there. We'll have a little coupon code there where you can go and access. It's going to be full of a lot of great information. So this was a great episode. Again, James, thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
For coming on here. And again, if you enjoyed the episode, please share it, like it, subscribe. We'd love any reviews you have on iTunes or any other social media platform we have. We'd love for you to send us your comments and questions. Thanks for watching. I'm Danny Gonzalez, and stay tuned. We will catch you next week.